She didn't know the man dying on the sidewalk. She didn't know his name, his wealth, or that saving him would destroy everything she thought she knew about her small, simple life. All Molly Hayes knew was that her hands were shaking, her baby was crying behind her, and this stranger's heart had stopped beating. One decision, 30 seconds of courage, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. This is the story of how one breath changed 2 lives forever. "Sir, can you hear me? Sir, please stay with me." Molly's voice cracked as her frozen fingers pressed against the stranger's chest. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Her nursing school training from 6 years ago flooded back muscle memory, taking over even as panic clawed at her throat. Behind her, still strapped to the old scooter, 10-month-old Eli screamed. The sound ripped through her concentration, but she couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. This man was dying. "Somebody call 911!" she shouted to the crowd forming around them. Business people in expensive coats stood frozen phones in hand, recording instead of helping. Now. The man's lips were blue. His expensive suit was soaked from the freezing rain that had turned Boston's morning rush hour into chaos. Molly didn't know who he was. Didn't care. All she saw was a human being who needed her. Come on," she whispered, tears mixing with rain on her face. Her arms burned. Eli's cries grew more desperate. "Please don't die. Please." 15 minutes earlier, Molly had been worried about being late to her shift at Sullivan's Cafe. Again. Mr. Sullivan had warned her last week that he couldn't keep making exceptions, even if she was a single mom. Even if her scooter barely started in cold weather. Even if she was doing her best. Now none of that mattered. "Ma'am, step back. We've got him." Strong hands pulled her away as paramedics swarmed the man. Molly stumbled backward, her legs nearly giving out. She turned to Eli, who was red-faced and sobbing, and scooped him from the carrier, holding him tight against her chest. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry," she whispered into his soft hair. "Mama's here. Mama's here." "Ma'am, we need your information," one of the paramedics called out. But Molly was already backing away, shaking her head. She couldn't afford to get involved. Couldn't afford to be late. Couldn't afford the questions, the paperwork, the time. She was already 20 minutes behind schedule, soaked to the bone, and Eli needed to be changed. She climbed back onto her scooter, secured Eli in the carrier, and drove away as the ambulance arrived. In her rearview mirror, she saw them loading the man onto a stretcher. She prayed he would live. Then she pushed the thought away and focused on getting to work. Molly was 30 minutes late. Mr. Sullivan met her at the door, his face tight with disapproval. "This is the 3rd time this month, Molly. I know, I'm sorry, there was an accident and I don't want to hear excuses." He cut her off, his voice sharp. "You're a good worker, but I can't run a business on good intentions. One more time, and I'll have to let you go." Molly nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. It won't happen again. It had to not happen again. This job was everything. It paid her rent, bought Eli's formula, kept the lights on in their tiny studio apartment. Losing it wasn't an option. She changed into her uniform in the cramped bathroom, checked on Eli in the back room, where Mr. Sullivan reluctantly let her keep his portable crib, and started her shift. Her hands still trembled as she poured coffee, took orders, wiped down tables. "You okay, honey?" asked Margaret, the other waitress, a woman in her 60s who had worked at Sullivan's for 20 years. "Just a rough morning." Margaret squeezed her shoulder. "Most mornings are rough when you're doing it alone, but you're tougher than you look." Molly wasn't sure about that. Most days, she felt like she was held together with tape and prayers. Her husband, Jake, had died 2 years ago. A car accident on I-90, sudden and senseless. One moment, she had a partner, a future, a plan. The next moment, she was pregnant and alone, drowning in medical bills and grief. She had dropped out of nursing school when Eli was born, couldn't afford childcare and tuition, couldn't do it all. So she waitressed instead, surviving day by day, trying not to think too hard about the dreams she had given up. The lunch rush came and went. Molly moved through it mechanically, smile plastered on her face, feet aching in her worn shoes. When her shift finally ended at 3, she collected Eli, who had been surprisingly good all day, and headed home. Their apartment was on the 4th floor of an old building with no elevator. By the time she reached the door, Eli was fussing and she was exhausted. She fed him, bathed him, played with him on the threadbare carpet while he laughed and grabbed at her hair. These moments made everything worth it. When Eli smiled at her with Jake's eyes, when he reached for her with complete trust, when he fell asleep in her arms with his tiny hand curled against her chest. This was why she kept going. She tucked him into his crib at 7, collapsed onto her futon, and let herself cry. Just for a few minutes, just enough to release the pressure building in her chest. Then she wiped her face, made herself cheap ramen for dinner, and tried not to think about the man on the sidewalk. 3 days later, flowers arrived. Molly stared at the massive bouquet on her doorstep, confused. The card read, "Thank you for saving my life. I am forever in your debt. Charles Whitman." Charles Whitman. The name meant nothing to her. She brought the flowers inside, put them in a vase she had gotten at a thrift store, and forgot about it. The next day, a handwritten letter arrived. Expensive paper, elegant script. Dear Ms. Hayes, I am the man you saved on Tuesday morning. The doctors tell me I went into cardiac arrest and would have died if not for your quick action and courage. I cannot adequately express my gratitude. Please allow me to thank you properly. My assistant will be in touch. With deepest appreciation, Charles Whitman. Molly read it twice, then tucked it into a drawer. She didn't need thanks. She had done what anyone should do. But apparently, Charles Whitman didn't think anyone would do it. Because on Friday, his assistant called. Ms. Hayes, this is Jennifer Marks, executive assistant to Charles Whitman. Mr. Whitman would very much like to meet with you to express his gratitude in person. Would you be available this weekend? That's not necessary, Molly said, bouncing Eli on her hip while trying to stir pasta sauce with her free hand. Really, I'm glad he's okay. Mr. Whitman is quite insistent. He's a very determined man. I'm sure he is, but I don't need anything. Tell him I'm happy he survived and I wish him well. There was a pause. Ms. Hayes, with all respect, Mr. Whitman rarely takes no for an answer. Well, he'll have to make an exception. Molly kept her voice polite but firm. Have a good day. She hung up before the woman could argue. Eli grabbed at the spoon, splattering sauce on both of them, and Molly laughed despite herself. You're a mess, baby boy. He grinned at her, all gums and joy. She thought that was the end of it. She was wrong. The following Tuesday morning, Molly was halfway through her shift when the cafe door opened and a man walked in. Tall, early 40s, dark hair with silver at the temples. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, no coat despite the cold. He looked normal, tired, human. He walked directly to the counter where Molly was refilling the coffee station. Molly Hayes. She looked up confused. Yes? I'm Charles Whitman. You saved my life. The coffee pot nearly slipped from her hand. She set it down, carefully staring at him. This was the man from the sidewalk. She recognized him now without the blue lips and rain and terror. Oh, she said. You're okay. Because of you. His voice was quiet, sincere. You didn't just save my life. You brought me back from somewhere I thought I was never coming back from. Other customers were watching. Molly felt her cheeks flush. I just did CPR. Anyone would have, but they didn't. He stepped closer, his eyes intense. Dozens of people stood there with their phones out, recording me dying. You were the only one who moved, the only one who tried. Molly didn't know what to say. She picked up a rag, wiping down the already clean counter. I'm glad you're okay, really, but I need to get back to work. Let me buy you lunch, please. Just one meal. Let me say thank you properly. I don't need thanks, Mr. Whitman. Charles. Please call me Charles. Charles. She met his eyes. I didn't save you for lunch. I didn't save you for flowers or letters or gratitude. I did it because no one else would. Because it was the right thing to do. Because you're a human being and you deserve to live. That's all. Something in his expression shifted, softened. You're right. But please, let me know you. Let me understand who you are. The woman who stopped everything to save a stranger. Molly, you got customers waiting, Mr. Sullivan called from the kitchen. I have to work, she said to Charles. I'm sorry. He nodded slowly. Okay, but I'll come back, if that's all right. It's a free country. A small smile touched his lips. Thank you, Molly Hayes. He left without ordering anything. Margaret appeared at her elbow. Girl, who was that? Nobody, Molly said. Just somebody I helped once. But that wasn't quite true, was it? Because when Charles Whitman walked out the door, Molly felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. A tiny spark of something. Interest. Curiosity. Connection. She pushed it away and got back to work. Charles came back the next day. Same time, same quiet entrance. This time he ordered coffee and sat in the corner booth, laptop open, but his eyes following Molly as she worked. It should have been creepy. It wasn't. It was just there. Like he wanted to understand her from a distance. He came back every day that week. Always polite, always tipping well, never pushing conversation beyond pleasantries. On Friday, he stayed until closing. Why do you keep coming here? Molly finally asked as she wiped down tables. Eli was asleep in his carrier in the back room, and the cafe was empty except for them. Charles closed his laptop. Honestly, because I can't stop thinking about what you did, about who does that, who risks everything, who doesn't even think twice, who just acts. I was a nursing student once. It was just training. It wasn't just training. He stood walking closer. I've been researching you, Molly. I hope that doesn't upset you. She stiffened. That's kind of invasive. I know, and I'm sorry. But I needed to understand. You're 28 years old. Your husband died 2 years ago. You dropped out of nursing school when your son was born. You work here 6 days a week. You live alone. You have no family nearby. And despite all of that, despite everything you're carrying, you still stopped to save me. Molly's jaw tightened. What do you want, Charles, really? Because if this is some kind of pity thing or guilt thing, or you think you owe me something, I don't think I owe you. He interrupted, his voice steady. I know I owe you, but that's not why I keep coming back. Then why? He was quiet for a long moment. Because in 42 years, no one has ever looked at me the way you did on that sidewalk. Like I was just a person. Not a CEO, not a billionaire, not Charles Whitman of Whitman Industries. Just a man who needed help. And after you saved me, you left. You didn't want anything. You didn't even want to be thanked. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I'm not special, Molly said quietly. Yes, you are. His eyes held hers. You absolutely are. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Molly couldn't name. Then Eli cried out from the back room, breaking the spell. I need to go, she said quickly. Lock up when you leave. Molly, wait. She paused at the door. Would you let me help you? Charles asked. Not as payment, not as debt, just as someone who wants to help. Please. Help how? However you need. Childcare, bills, school, anything. Molly turned to face him fully. I don't need charity, Charles. I'm doing fine. Are you? He asked gently. Are you really fine? Or are you drowning and too proud to admit it? The words hit harder than they should have. Because he was right. She was drowning. Every single day was a battle to keep her head above water, but accepting help from a wealthy stranger felt wrong, felt like giving up, felt like admitting she couldn't do it alone. "I manage," she said finally. "I believe you, but you shouldn't have to just manage. You should get to live." "Good night, Charles." "Good night, Molly." She collected Eli and left his words following her all the way home. Charles kept coming. Every day, same seat, same coffee, same quiet presence. Slowly, carefully, they began to talk. Real conversations. About books, music, childhood memories, dreams that had been abandoned. Charles told her about his ex-wife, a marriage that had been more merger than love. About building his company from nothing, working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing everything for success, until he woke up one day and realized he was completely alone. "I have everything," he said one afternoon, "and it means nothing, because there's no one to share it with. No one who cares about me, just about what I can do for them." Molly told him about Jake, about how they had met in high school, fallen in love at 17, planned their whole future together. How his death had shattered her world into pieces she was still trying to reassemble. "I miss him every day," she admitted. "But Eli needs me to keep going, so I do." "You're stronger than you know." "I'm not strong, I'm just stubborn." Charles laughed. It was the first time she had heard him really laugh, and something about it made her chest feel lighter. Weeks passed. The weather turned colder. Charles bought Eli a better winter coat when he saw Molly wrapping the baby in 3 layers of blankets. She protested, but Charles was already gone by the time she realized what had happened. "He's good people," Margaret said, watching Charles through the window as he climbed into a town car. "Rich as sin, but good people. Don't see that much." "He's just being nice." Honey men don't come to the same cafe every single day for mediocre coffee because they're just being nice. He's here for you. "It's not like that." Margaret gave her a knowing look. "If you say so." But late at night, when Molly couldn't sleep, she thought about Charles. About his quiet kindness, his self-deprecating humor, the way he played peekaboo with Eli while she served other customers. About how he never made her feel less than, even though their worlds were galaxies apart. She thought about how she felt when he smiled at her. How she had started looking forward to his visits. How the cafe felt emptier on the rare days he didn't show up. She thought about how terrifying it was to feel something again after 2 years of numbness. One night in early December, everything changed. Molly was putting Eli to bed when he started coughing. Small coughs at first, then deeper, wetter ones that made his little body shake. His forehead was burning. "No, no, no," she whispered, pressing her hand to his skin. "Come on, baby. You're okay." But he wasn't okay. The coughing got worse. His breathing turned wheezy, labored. When she called the pediatrician's after-hours line, the nurse told her to get him to an emergency room immediately. Molly grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called the only number she could think of. Charles answered on the first ring. "Molly, what's wrong?" "It's Eli. He can't breathe right. I need to get him to the hospital, but my scooter won't start, and I can't afford an ambulance, and I don't know what to do." The words tumbled out in a panicked rush. "I'm on my way. 10 minutes. Hold on." He was there in 8. Molly ran down the stairs with Eli wrapped in blankets, tears streaming down her face. Charles had a car waiting door already open. She climbed in and he followed, giving the driver directions to Boston Children's Hospital. "He's going to be okay." Charles said, his hand covering hers. "We're going to get him help." Eli's coughs were getting weaker. His skin was too hot, his eyes unfocused. Molly held him tight, whispering prayers and promises and apologies into his hair. At the hospital, Charles carried Eli while Molly gave information to the intake nurse. Her voice kept breaking. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Charles stayed beside her, solid and calm. His presence the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. They took Eli back immediately. "Bronchiolitis," the doctor said. "Common in infants, usually treatable, but they needed to monitor him overnight because his oxygen levels were low. "You can stay with him," the nurse told Molly. "There's a chair that pulls out into a bed." Molly nodded, numb with relief and exhaustion. Charles squeezed her shoulder. "I'll be right here, in the waiting room, if you need anything at all." "You should go home," she whispered. "It's late. You don't have to." "I'm staying." "Charles?" "I'm staying, Molly." His voice was gentle but absolute. End of discussion. She didn't have the energy to argue. They hooked Eli up to monitors and oxygen. He looked so small in the hospital crib, surrounded by wires and beeping machines. Molly sat beside him, holding his tiny hand, watching his chest rise and fall. Around midnight, she went to the waiting room to update Charles. He was still there, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, reading something on his phone. "He's sleeping," she said. "They think he'll be okay." "That's good. That's really good." He stood. "Have you eaten anything?" She shook her head. "Come on." He guided her to the hospital cafeteria, bought her soup and crackers she didn't want, and sat with her while she forced down a few bites. "When's the last time you slept?" "I don't know. Yesterday morning, maybe." "Molly, I know." She pushed the soup away. "I know I need to take care of myself. Everyone tells me that. But how am I supposed to sleep when my baby can't breathe? How am I supposed to eat when I don't know if he's going to be okay? How am I supposed to—" Her voice cracked. The tears she had been holding back finally came, messy and unstoppable. Charles moved to the chair beside her and pulled her into his arms. She should have pushed him away, should have held herself together. But she was so tired, so scared, so alone. So she let herself break. Just for a few minutes, just enough to remember how it felt to be held. "You're not alone anymore," Charles whispered into her hair. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time since Jake died, Molly let herself believe that might be true. They stayed at the hospital for 3 days. Eli improved slowly, his breathing steadying, his fever breaking. And through it all, Charles remained. He brought Molly clean clothes from her apartment, coffee that didn't taste like cardboard, meals she actually wanted to eat. He held Eli so she could shower in the tiny hospital bathroom. He read to the baby when Molly finally collapsed into exhausted sleep in the pull-out chair. On the morning of the 3rd day, when the doctors cleared Eli for discharge, Molly found Charles asleep in the waiting room chair, his head tilted back at an awkward angle, still wearing the same clothes from 3 days ago. She stood there watching him for a moment, this man who had upended his entire life to sit in a hospital waiting room for a baby who wasn't his. This man who barely knew her, but had shown up without hesitation when she needed him most. "You're staring," Charles said without opening his eyes. Molly jumped. "I thought you were asleep." "I was. Your footsteps woke me." He opened his eyes, straightening with a wince. "How's Eli?" "Good. Really good. We can go home today." "That's wonderful." He stood, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I'll drive you." "Charles, you've done enough. More than enough. You should go home, get real sleep, take a shower." "Are you saying I smell—" Despite everything, Molly laughed. "Maybe a little." "Fair." He smiled, and something in her chest squeezed tight. "But I'm still driving you home. Then I'll go shower and sleep, and return to being a respectable member of society." She didn't argue this time. The drive back to her apartment was quiet. Eli dozed in the car seat Charles had somehow acquired, and Molly watched the city pass by the window. Everything felt different now, sharper, more real, like she had been living in a fog for 2 years and was only now starting to see clearly. "Thank you," she said as they pulled up to her building. "For everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." Charles turned off the engine and faced her. "You would have figured it out. You always do. But I'm glad I could help. I'm glad you called me. You were the only person I could think to call." "Molly." He hesitated, then continued carefully. I know this is probably not the right time, but I've been thinking about something. About what you told me once about dropping out of nursing school. Her stomach tightened. Charles, don't. Just hear me out, please. He held up a hand. I want to sponsor your degree. Full tuition, childcare costs, living expenses, everything. You could go back, finish what you started. No. Why not? Because it's charity. Her voice was sharper than she intended. Because I don't need you to save me. It's not charity. It's an investment. In someone who clearly has the calling and the talent. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I watched you save my life. Remember, I saw what you can do under pressure. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. Molly, you're 28 years old. You have 50 more years ahead of you. Are you really going to spend all of them serving coffee when you could be saving lives? The words stung because they were true. Because every day at the cafe felt like dying slowly. Because she dreamed about nursing school late at night, when she couldn't sleep about the career she had given up, about the person she could have been. But accepting money from Charles felt wrong. Felt like giving up her independence, her dignity. Felt like admitting she couldn't make it on her own. I need to think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. She gathered Eli and climbed out of the car. Charles waited until she was inside the building before driving away. That night, after Eli was asleep, Molly pulled out her old nursing textbooks from the box under her bed. She ran her fingers over the spines, remembering late nights, studying the thrill of learning, the certainty that she was meant to do this work. Could she really go back? Could she accept Charles's help and still maintain her self-respect? She didn't know. But for the first time in 2 years, she let herself hope. The next morning, Charles was waiting outside the cafe when she arrived for her shift. He looked different back in his expensive suit, hair perfectly styled. The Charles she had sat with in the hospital seemed like a different person. I've been thinking, she said as she unlocked the door, about your offer. And she turned to face him. If I say yes, and that's a big if, I need conditions. This isn't a gift, it's a loan. Every penny I pay back, with interest. Molly, that's not necessary. It is for me. I won't take charity, Charles, but I might accept a loan from someone who believes in me. He studied her face for a long moment. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Is that a yes? It's a yes, on your terms. He extended his hand. Partners. She shook at his palm, warm against hers. Partners. But even as she said it, even as relief and excitement flooded through her, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a warning. Nothing this good came without a price, and she was about to find out exactly what that price would be. Charles helped her fill out the readmission paperwork for nursing school that week. He arranged for a childcare service vetted and trustworthy that would watch Eli during her classes. He set up a bank account with enough money to cover her living expenses so she could quit the cafe and focus on school. This is too much, Molly kept saying. It's exactly what you need. No more, no less, Charles replied each time. The process took 3 weeks. In that time, Charles kept coming to the cafe every day, kept talking to her, kept making her laugh in ways she had forgotten were possible. And slowly, quietly, something between them shifted. It started with small things. The way he remembered how she took her coffee. The way he listened when she talked about Eli, really listened like every detail mattered. The way he played with the baby, making silly faces that sent Eli into fits of giggles. You're good with him, Molly said one afternoon, watching Charles bounce Eli on his knee. I like him. He's got your eyes. He's got his father's eyes. Charles looked up at her, something unreadable in his expression. You must miss him, your husband. Every day, but... She hesitated. It's different now. The missing isn't as sharp. It's more like an old ache than a fresh wound. Time does that, makes things bearable. Is that how you feel about your divorce? My divorce was a relief more than anything. We were never really married, not in the way that matters. We were business partners who signed a legal document. He handed Eli back to her. But I envy what you had. Even if you lost it. At least you knew what real love felt like. Their eyes held for a moment too long. Molly looked away first, her heart racing. This was dangerous. This feeling growing between them. Because Charles lived in a different world, a world of private jets and charity galas, and decisions that affected thousands of people. And she was just a waitress with a baby, and a dream that might not even come true. They had no future. She knew that. But knowing it didn't stop her from wanting it anyway. Her last day at Sullivan's Cafe came on a Friday in January. Margaret hugged her tight, tears in her eyes. You go be a nurse, honey. You go save lives. And don't forget about us little people when you're important. I could never forget you, Molly said, her own eyes stinging. You kept me sane these past 2 years. Mr. Sullivan shook her hand awkwardly. You're a good worker, Molly. Come back and visit sometime. Charles picked her up after her shift. They drove to the harbor, parked, and walked along the water with Eli strapped to Molly's chest. It was cold, the wind biting, but the sky was clear and the water sparkled. Nervous? Charles asked. Terrified, she admitted. What if I can't do it? What if I've forgotten everything? What if I fail? You won't fail. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He stopped walking, turning to face her. You saved my life with your bare hands on a freezing sidewalk while your baby cried behind you. If you can do that, you can do anything. Molly felt tears prick her eyes. Why do you have so much faith in me? Because you deserve it. Because someone should. He reached out, almost touching her face, then dropped his hand. Because when I look at you, I see someone extraordinary pretending to be ordinary, and I can't let that happen. The moment stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Molly wanted to close the distance, wanted to lean into him, wanted to stop fighting whatever this was. But Eli squirmed against her chest, breaking the spell. She stepped back, wrapping her coat tighter. I should get him home. It's too cold out here. Right. Of course. Charles cleared his throat. I'll drive you. They didn't talk much on the way back, but when he pulled up to her building, he caught her hand before she could get out. Molly, I need to tell you something. Her heart hammered. What? He stopped, shook his head. Never mind. Good luck on Monday. Your first day. You're going to be amazing. She knew that wasn't what he had been about to say. But she didn't push. Couldn't push. Because if he said what she thought he wanted to say, everything would change. And she wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Nursing school was harder than she remembered. Juggling classes, clinicals, studying, and caring for Eli left her exhausted every single day. But it also made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Charles checked in regularly. Text messages asking how her day went. Coffee delivered to her apartment on mornings when she had early classes. Small gifts for Eli, a new toy, warm pajamas, books with bright pictures. You need to stop, she told him one evening when he showed up with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. This is too much. It's dinner, Molly, not a marriage proposal. The words hung awkwardly between them. Bad joke, he said quickly. Sorry, I just meant, let me help. Let me be part of your life. Is that really so terrible? No, she admitted quietly. It's not terrible at all. That's what scares me. He set the food down on her small kitchen counter. Why does it scare you? Because this can't last. Because eventually you're going to realize that I'm just an ordinary person with an ordinary life, and you're going to get bored and move on. And when you do, it's going to destroy me. So maybe it's better if we just... She gestured helplessly. Keep our distance. Keep our distance, he repeated flatly. After everything. After everything. Charles laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really think that little of me? You think I'm that shallow? I think you're human. I think rich, successful, powerful men don't usually stay interested in broke single moms for very long. I'm not most men. Aren't you? The question hit its mark. She saw him flinch, saw hurt flash across his face. But he didn't argue. Instead, he picked up his coat. Keep the food. You need to eat. His voice was carefully neutral. I'll give you the space you're asking for. But Molly, when you figure out that you're wrong about me, when you realize that I'm not going anywhere, I'll be right here, waiting. He left before she could respond. Molly stood in her empty apartment, the smell of Thai food filling the small space, and wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. 3 weeks passed. Charles didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up with coffee. The silence was deafening. Molly told herself it was for the best, that she had done the right thing. But she missed him. God, she missed him. She missed his laugh, his terrible jokes, the way he looked at Eli like the baby was the most fascinating creature on earth. She missed the way he made her feel seen, valued, important. She missed the possibility of him. You're an idiot, Margaret said when Molly stopped by the cafe to visit. That man is crazy about you, and you pushed him away because you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm realistic. Same thing, honey. Same thing. Margaret poured her coffee. Life's too short to say no to love because you're afraid it might end. Everything ends eventually. That doesn't mean it's not worth having. It's not love, it's gratitude. He's confused. And you're lying to yourself. Margaret patted her hand. But you'll figure it out eventually. Just hope it's not too late when you do. Molly went home that night and pulled out Charles's business card, the one he had given her months ago that she had never used. Her thumb hovered over his number. She almost called him. Almost. Then Eli started crying, and the moment passed, and she told herself tomorrow. She would call him tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and she chickened out. And the day after that. And the day after that. Until one cold February evening when everything fell apart. Molly was walking home from class exhausted from a 12-hour clinical rotation when she saw him. Charles standing outside her building, hands in his pockets, breath fogging in the cold air. Her heart lurched. Charles, what are you doing here? He looked up and she saw something in his face that made her stomach drop. I tried to stay away, I really did. But I can't do this anymore, Molly. I can't pretend I don't care about you. I can't pretend that thinking about you doesn't consume every waking moment. I can't pretend that I don't love you. The words hit her like a physical blow. Charles, I know you're scared. I know you think I'm going to leave, that I'm going to get bored, that this is just some phase. But you're wrong. He stepped closer. I have spent my entire life building empires and making millions and being successful. And none of it, not one single moment of it, has made me feel the way I feel when I'm with you. When you look at me, you see Charles. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the guy who can write a check to solve problems. Just me. And that's worth more than everything I've built. This is crazy, Molly whispered. We barely know each other. I know you take your coffee black because you can't afford cream. I know you hum to Eli when you think no one's listening. I know you cry during commercials with puppies. I know you're terrified of failing, but even more terrified of not trying. I know you're the strongest, most stubborn, most incredible woman I've ever met. So don't tell me I barely know you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm a mess, Charles. I'm broke and exhausted, and I have a baby and mountains of student debt, and I don't fit into your world. Then we'll make a new world. One that fits both of us. He reached up, wiping away her tears with his thumb. I'm not asking you to have all the answers right now. I'm just asking you to let me in, to stop pushing me away, to give us a chance. Every logical part of her brain screamed no. Screamed that this was impossible, that it would end in heartbreak, that she was setting herself up for disaster. But her heart, that traitorous thing, whispered yes. One chance, she said finally. But if you hurt me, if you hurt Eli, I will never forgive you. I won't hurt you, I promise. He pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in 3 weeks, Molly let herself breathe. "I promise." They stood there on the sidewalk, holding each other as snow began to fall, and Molly let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. She had no idea how wrong she was. The first month was perfect. Too perfect. Molly kept waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop, for Charles to wake up and realize what a mistake he had made. But he didn't. He showed up at her apartment 3 nights a week, with dinner always asking first, never assuming. He played with Eli for hours, building block towers for the baby to knock down, reading picture books in silly voices that made them both laugh. He quizzed Molly on her anatomy flashcards while she nursed Eli to sleep, celebrating when she got answers right, encouraging her when she didn't. "You're getting better every day," he said one evening, shuffling through her cards. "Last week you missed half of these, now you're getting 90%. I have a good tutor." She smiled at him over Eli's head, and the look he gave her back made her stomach flip. "I'm not your tutor. I'm just a guy who likes spending time with you. Just a guy who happens to be a billionaire CEO. Does that matter?" His voice was soft, suddenly serious. "Does it change how you feel about me?" Molly thought about it honestly. "Sometimes it scares me. Your world is so different from mine. But when we're here like this, it doesn't feel different at all. It just feels right." Charles set down the flashcards and moved closer. "It is right. We're right." He kissed her, then gentle and careful, like she was something precious. Molly melted into it, letting herself feel everything she had been holding back. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Charles rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for months." "Me too," she admitted. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was scared. I'm still scared." "Of what?" "Of losing this. Of losing you." She pulled back to look at him. "Everything good in my life gets taken away eventually. My parents, my husband, my dreams. I keep waiting for you to disappear too." Charles took her face in his hands. "I'm not disappearing. I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, Molly Hayes, for as long as you'll have me." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly. They kept their relationship quiet at first. Not secret, exactly, just private. Charles would come to her apartment, they would have dinner, watch movies, fall asleep on her tiny futon, with Eli between them. It was domestic and simple, and everything Molly had thought she would never have again. But word got out anyway. It always did. It started small. A few whispers at school when another nursing student saw Charles picking her up after class. Some raised eyebrows at the childcare center when he brought Eli in one morning because Molly had an early exam. "Is that your boyfriend?" one of the other mothers asked, not bothering to hide her curiosity. "He looks familiar." "We're dating," Molly said carefully. "He looks expensive." Molly didn't know how to respond to that, so she didn't. Then photos showed up online. Paparazzi shots of them leaving a restaurant, Charles's hand on her lower back, both of them laughing at something. The caption read, "Billionaire CEO Charles Whitman spotted with mystery woman and baby. New family." Molly's phone exploded with texts from people she hadn't talked to in years. Congratulations mixed with thinly veiled questions. "Is it serious? How did you meet? What does he see in you?" That last one came from an old high school friend, probably meant as a joke, but it stung anyway. "Ignore them," Charles said when she showed him the messages. "They don't matter." "They do matter. These are people I know, people I grew up with, and they're all wondering what you're doing with someone like me." "Someone like you." He looked genuinely confused. "You mean someone intelligent, compassionate, and beautiful?" "You know what I mean. Someone ordinary, someone poor, someone with baggage." "Eli is not baggage." "I didn't mean Eli. I meant all of it. My life, my situation. I'm not exactly a catch, Charles." He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "Stop. Stop doing that. Stop putting yourself down. Stop assuming you're not enough. You're more than enough. You're everything." Molly wanted to believe him, but the messages kept coming and the doubts kept growing. 2 weeks later, Charles invited her to a charity gala. "It's for the Children's Hospital," he explained. "The one that treated Eli. I'm on the board and I have to go. I want you there with me." Molly's stomach twisted. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because it's your world, Charles. Important people fancy dress as photographers. I don't belong there." "You belong wherever I am. Please, Molly, let me show you off. Let me be proud of the woman I love." "The woman I love." He said it so easily now, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And when he looked at her like that with such certainty and hope, how could she say no? "I don't have anything to wear to something like that." "We'll figure it out. Say yes." Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Molly said yes. The dress Charles bought was beautiful, simple and elegant in deep blue. Not flashy, not trying too hard, just perfect. When Molly put it on the night of the gala, she barely recognized herself in the mirror. "You look stunning," Charles said when he picked her up. He was in a tuxedo, devastatingly handsome, and the way he looked at her made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could pull this off. The gala was at a downtown hotel, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers and people dripping in diamonds. Molly felt every eye turn to them as they walked in, felt the weight of judgment and curiosity pressing down on her shoulders. "Just stay close to me." Charles whispered, his hand firm on her waist. "I've got you." But he didn't have her. Not really. Because the moment they entered the ballroom, people descended. Women in gowns that cost more than Molly's yearly rent, men in $1,000 suits, all of them wanting Charles's attention, all of them pretending Molly didn't exist. "Charles, darling, we need to discuss the Q4 projections." "Whitman, have you seen the latest market analysis?" "Charles, you must meet the governor's wife." They pulled him away, one conversation bleeding into another, and Molly stood there alone, clutching her champagne glass like a lifeline. She tried to smile, tried to look like she belonged, but she could hear the whispers. "Who is she?" "Some waitress, I heard." "She has a baby. Not even his." "How long do you think this will last?" "A man like Charles Whitman slumming it must be a midlife crisis." Each word was a knife. Molly kept her face neutral, but inside she was dying. A woman approached her 50-something with perfect platinum hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be Charles's new friend. How refreshing to see him with someone so down to earth." The way she said it made it sound like an insult. "I'm Molly," she said, extending her hand. The woman ignored it. "Catherine Sterling. My husband runs Sterling Financial. We've known Charles for 20 years. She looked Molly up and down. "That's a lovely dress. Is it vintage?" "It's new." "Oh, it just looks simple. But I suppose that's the appeal, isn't it? The whole regular girl fantasy." Catherine laughed, a tinkling sound that made Molly's teeth ache. "Don't worry, dear. He'll grow tired of it eventually. Men like Charles always do. They like to play house with women like you, but they always come back to their own kind." Molly felt the blood drain from her face. "Excuse me." She walked away, heading for the bathroom, needing space to breathe. But she only made it to the hallway before the tears started. "Stupid," she whispered to herself, wiping furiously at her eyes. "So stupid to think you could do this." "Hey, are you okay?" Molly turned to find a younger woman, maybe her age, with kind eyes and a concerned expression. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. I saw Catherine Sterling corner you. She's a nightmare." The woman handed her a tissue. "I'm Rachel. My fiancé dragged me to this thing. I hate these events." "I'm Molly. I know who you are. Everyone's talking about you." Rachel smiled gently. "You're dating Charles Whitman. That takes guts, walking into this Shark Tank." "I'm starting to realize that. Look, I'm going to be real with you because someone should. These people, they're going to eat you alive. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you're different. Because Charles chose you instead of one of their daughters or nieces or whoever they had lined up for him. They're going to whisper and judge and try to make you feel small. And if you let them, they'll succeed. What am I supposed to do? Hold your head up. Remember that Charles chose you for a reason. And don't let these vultures convince you that you don't deserve to be happy. Rachel squeezed her arm. Now fix your makeup and get back out there. Show them you're not going anywhere. Molly wanted to. She really did. But when she returned to the ballroom and saw Charles surrounded by beautiful, accomplished women in their expensive gowns, saw how easily he fit into this world, how natural it all was for him, the doubt crept back in. She didn't belong here. She would never belong here. Charles finally broke free and found her standing by the bar. There you are. I'm sorry everyone wanted to talk business and I couldn't get away. Are you having a good time? It's fine. He studied her face. What happened? Nothing happened. I'm just tired. Molly talked to me. Not here, please. He nodded slowly. Okay, let's go. No, you have to stay. This is important for you. You're more important. But even as he said it, someone called his name, a board member needing to discuss funding. Charles hesitated, torn between obligations. Go, Molly said. I'll wait. She watched him walk away, watched him slip back into that world of power and influence and money, and felt the distance between them grow with every step. An hour later, Molly was alone at a table when she overheard a conversation behind her. 3 women, drinks in hand, voices carrying. Did you see her dress so plain? I mean, Charles could have at least taken her shopping somewhere decent. Apparently she's a student, nursing school or something. Oh God, is this one of those pretty woman situations? Did he pick her up off the street? They laughed, cruel and dismissive. I give it 6 months, maybe less. Once the novelty wears off and he realizes she can't carry a conversation about anything that matters. Poor thing probably thinks this is real, thinks he's actually going to marry her. As if. Men like Charles don't marry women like her. They have fun, they play hero, and then they marry someone appropriate. Molly stood up so fast, her chair scraped loudly against the floor. The 3 women turned their faces draining of color when they realized she had heard everything. She walked past them without a word, past the glittering crowd, and the crystal chandeliers past Charles, who was still deep in conversation, and out the front doors into the cold night air. She was 3 blocks away when Charles caught up to her. Molly, stop. What the hell happened? She whirled around, tears streaming down her face. I can't do this. I can't be that person, the one everyone whispers about and judges and assumes is just some gold digger or charity case. Who said that to you? Tell me who, and I'll... It doesn't matter who. It's all of them, Charles. All of them looking at me like I'm some kind of fraud, like I tricked you somehow. And maybe they're right. They're not right. Aren't they? Her voice broke. Look at us. Really look at us. You're a billionaire CEO who flies in private jets and runs a company and sits on boards. I'm a broke single mom who serves coffee and studies anatomy in a crappy apartment. We're from different worlds. I don't care about any of that. But I do. I care that everywhere we go, people are going to question what you see in me. I care that I'll never be good enough for your world. I care that eventually you're going to wake up and realize they're right, that this was just some phase. And then where will I be? I'll be the idiot who fell in love with someone completely wrong for her and got her heart shattered again. Charles grabbed her arms. Is that what you think? That I'm going to leave you? Yes, because everyone leaves, because nothing good lasts, because I'm not stupid enough to believe in fairy tales. This isn't a fairy tale, Molly. It's real life. My real life. And I choose you. Every single day I choose you. You say that now. But what about in a year? 5 years? What happens when I can't keep up? When I embarrass you at another gala? When your friends and colleagues make it clear I don't belong? Then we won't go to galas. We'll stay home. We'll build our own life. You can't just walk away from your world. Watch me." Molly shook her head, pulling away from him. "I can't ask you to do that. I won't be the reason you lose everything you've built. You're not losing me anything. You're giving me something I've never had. A real relationship, real love, a real family. Eli isn't your son, Charles. I'm not your wife. We're not a family." The words hung between them, brutal and final. Charles looked like she had physically struck him. "Is that really how you feel?" His voice was barely a whisper. Molly wanted to take it back. Wanted to tell him she didn't mean it, that she was just scared, that she loved him more than she had ever loved anyone except Jake. But the fear was too strong, the wounds from tonight too fresh. "I think we need space," she said instead. "I think we move too fast, and we need to step back and really think about whether this makes sense." "It makes perfect sense. We love each other." "Love isn't always enough, Charles. Sometimes the world won't let it be enough. So you're just going to give up? You're going to let those awful people win?" "I'm protecting myself. I'm protecting Eli. And honestly, I'm protecting you too. Because you deserve someone who fits into your life. Someone who makes things easier instead of harder." "I don't want easy. I want you." "You'll change your mind." "I won't." Molly turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I need to go home, alone. Please don't follow me. Molly, please, don't do this." But she was already walking away, hailing a cab, climbing inside. Through the rear window, she saw Charles standing on the sidewalk, looking lost and broken, and it took everything in her not to tell the driver to turn around. She had done the right thing, the smart thing. She had protected her heart before it could be completely destroyed. So why did it feel like she was dying inside? When she got home, the babysitter asked if she had a good time. Molly paid her, waited until she left, and then collapsed on the futon and cried until she had no tears left. Eli woke up twice that night, fussy and unsettled, like he could sense something was wrong. She held him close, breathing in his baby smell, and tried to convince herself she had made the right choice. A week passed, then two. Charles didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at her apartment. He was respecting her wishes, giving her the space she asked for, and Molly felt his absence like a physical wound. School became harder. She couldn't concentrate in lectures, kept zoning out during clinicals. She was exhausted all the time, sleeping poorly, eating less. Her grades started to slip. "You okay, honey?" Margaret asked when Molly stopped by the cafe. "You look terrible." "Thanks a lot." "I'm serious. You look like you haven't slept in days, and you've lost weight. What's going on?" Molly told her everything. The gala, the whispers, the fight, the breakup. Margaret listened quietly, then shook her head. "You're an idiot." "Excuse me." "You heard me. You let a bunch of shallow, jealous people convince you that you weren't good enough. And instead of fighting for what you wanted, you ran away." "I didn't run away. I was realistic." "You were scared. There's a difference." Margaret poured them both coffee. "Let me tell you something. My husband was a mechanic. I was a waitress. When we got married, his family was furious. Said I was beneath him, that I was only after his money, which was hilarious because he had no money. They made my life hell for years. And you know what we did? We ignored them. We built our life anyway. And we were happy for 37 years until he died. That's different. How? Charles is rich and powerful and human, just like the rest of us. Money doesn't change the important stuff, Molly. It doesn't change love. It doesn't change commitment. It doesn't change the fact that you found someone good who wants to build a life with you." Margaret reached across the table. "Don't let pride or fear cost you something real. Life's too damn short." Molly went home that night and stared at her phone for an hour. Her thumb hovered over Charles's number a dozen times, but every time she almost called, she remembered Catherine Sterling's words. "He'll grow tired of it eventually. Men like Charles always do." What if she was right? What if Molly went back, opened her heart completely, and then Charles realized his mistake, She wouldn't survive that. She barely survived losing Jake. Losing Charles would break her completely. So she put the phone down and went to bed alone, convincing herself it was better this way. But late at night, when Eli was asleep and the apartment was silent, Molly let herself remember. The way Charles laughed at her terrible jokes. The way he held Eli like the baby was made of glass. The way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. And she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she had made the biggest mistake of her life. 3 weeks became a month. A month became 6 weeks. Spring arrived, melting the last of the winter snow, and still Molly hadn't called. Still, Charles stayed away. But he hadn't completely disappeared. Not really. One morning, Molly found an envelope under her door. No note, just a check covering 3 months of rent. She stared at it for a full minute before ripping it into pieces. The next day, another envelope appeared. This time it was a gift card to the grocery store she shopped at, loaded with $500. She sent it back, returned to sender, written across the front. "He's still paying for your school," her advisor mentioned during a check-in meeting. "Your account is fully funded through graduation." "Can you tell him to stop?" The advisor looked confused. "Tell one of our biggest donors to stop funding a scholarship. That's not really how this works." Molly wanted to argue, but what was the point? She needed that money, needed to finish school. Refusing it would only hurt herself and Eli. So she swallowed her pride and accepted it, even though it felt like taking charity from a stranger instead of support from someone who loved her. Did he still love her? After the things she said, after she pushed him away, after weeks of silence, she didn't know, wasn't sure she deserved to know. Her clinical rotation that spring was at Boston General, the same hospital where Charles had been taken after his heart attack. Molly worked the cardiac floor, learning to read EKG strips, administer medications, monitor patients recovering from surgery. "You're good at this," her supervising nurse said one afternoon. "Really good. You have the right instincts, the right touch with patients. This is what you were meant to do." The words should have made her happy. Instead, they made her think of Charles, of how he had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself, of how he had made this possible. One evening, while checking on a patient who had just undergone bypass surgery, Molly found herself telling the man's terrified wife what to expect during recovery, how to watch for warning signs, how to encourage him without pushing too hard, how to take care of herself while taking care of him. "Thank you," the woman said, gripping Molly's hand. "Everyone else just gives us medical jargon. You're the first person who's talked to me like I'm human." Molly squeezed back. "You are human. And you're going to get through this, both of you." Walking to her car that night, Molly passed the emergency entrance where ambulances came screaming in at all hours. She stopped staring at the doors, and suddenly she was back on that freezing sidewalk, hands on Charles's chest, counting compressions, begging him not to die. She had saved his life that day, but somehow he had saved hers too. He had given her a future, a dream, a reason to believe she could be more than just a survivor, and she had thrown it all back in his face. "God, I'm an idiot," she whispered to the empty parking lot. When she got home, Eli was fussy. The babysitter looked frazzled. "He's been crying for you for an hour. I tried everything." Molly paid her and took Eli, who immediately calmed in her arms. She held him close, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling the weight of him against her chest. "I know, baby. I know. Mama's been sad, and you can feel it, can't you?" She kissed his forehead. "I messed up. I messed up so bad." Eli grabbed her hair and yanked, which was his version of a hug. Molly laughed through sudden tears. "You like him, don't you? You like Charles. You light up every time he walks in the room, or you did before I ruined everything." Eli babbled something that might have been agreement. "What am I supposed to do? How do I fix this? How do I tell him I was wrong without looking like a complete fool?" She sat down on the futon, settling Eli on her lap. "What if he doesn't want me anymore? What if I hurt him too badly?" Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Stop overthinking and call the man. Molly stared at the message. Then she opened her contacts, found Charles's number, and before she could talk herself out of it, she called. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Charles Whitman. Leave a message." Molly's throat closed. She hung up without saying anything. Stupid. So stupid. What was she going to say anyway? "Sorry I broke your heart. Want to try again?" She tried twice more over the next few days. Both times voicemail. He was either ignoring her calls or genuinely unavailable. Either way, the message was clear. On Saturday morning, Molly woke up with a plan. She was going to go to his office. Show up in person. Make him listen. Tell him everything she should have said weeks ago. She dressed carefully, put Eli in his carrier, and took the train downtown to Whitman Industries. The building was sleek glass and steel, 60 stories of power and money and everything Molly wasn't. Her courage almost failed right there on the sidewalk. But she thought of Charles's face, the night of the gala, the devastation in his eyes when she said they weren't a family. She thought of all the ways he had shown up for her, all the times he had chosen her when he could have chosen easier. She pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby was intimidating, all marble and modern art, and security guards who looked like they could bench press small cars. Molly approached the reception desk, Eli heavy in the carrier. "I'm here to see Charles Whitman." The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a polite smile, barely glanced up. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I need to speak with him. It's important." "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitman doesn't see anyone without an appointment. If you'd like to schedule one, I can connect you with his assistant. I just need 5 minutes. Please, tell him Molly Hayes is here." Something flickered across the receptionist's face. Recognition, maybe. "Please wait here." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly into it, then hung up. "I'm sorry, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Whitman is not in the office today." "When will he be back?" "I don't have that information. Can you tell me where he is?" "I'm not authorized to share Mr. Whitman's schedule." Molly felt Eli squirming against her chest. People in expensive suits brushed past them, shooting curious glances. She didn't belong here. Would never belong here. "If you see him, can you tell him I came by? Tell him I need to talk to him." "Of course." But the receptionist's smile was dismissive, already moving on to the next person. Molly left feeling more foolish than when she arrived. She had actually thought she could just walk into his office and everything would be fine. As if she lived in some romantic movie where grand gestures fixed everything. Real life didn't work that way. She spent the rest of the weekend spiraling. Checking her phone obsessively, jumping every time it buzzed, hoping for a call or text that never came. By Monday, she was exhausted and heartbroken and angry at herself for letting it get this bad. Her clinical shift that day was brutal. A patient coded during her lunch break, and she had to assist with resuscitation. They got him back, but it left her shaken. Reminded her too much of Charles, of those terrifying minutes on the sidewalk. She finished her shift late, drove home on autopilot, and found herself taking a wrong turn. Not really wrong, intentional. She drove to the street where it had all started, where she had pulled over that freezing morning and saved a stranger's life. The street looked different in spring. Trees budding, green flowers in window boxes, people walking dogs and pushing strollers. Normal, peaceful. Nothing like that chaotic, terrifying morning. Molly parked her scooter and stood on the spot where Charles had collapsed, right there between the mailbox and the fire hydrant. She could still see it so clearly. His blue lips, his expensive suit, soaked through the crowd of people watching and doing nothing. "I didn't know you then," she said quietly to the empty sidewalk. "Didn't know your name or your life or anything about you. I just knew you needed help. And I helped because it was right. Because it was human. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try." Eli cooed from the carrier, and Molly stroked his back. "I saved your life that day. But somewhere along the way, you saved mine too. You reminded me that I could be more than just a survivor. That I could dream again. That I could love again. Her voice cracked. And I threw it away because I was scared. Because some awful people said awful things and I let them convince me I wasn't good enough for you. But the truth is, I don't know if you're good enough for me. Because you're patient and kind and you show up and you mean what you say. And I'm a mess who pushes people away and assumes the worst and can't accept that someone might actually want me. You're not a mess. Molly spun around, heart lurching. Charles stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, looking tired and sad, and so heartbreakingly real that Molly forgot how to breathe. How long have you been standing there? She whispered. Long enough. He moved closer. I come here sometimes, to this spot, to remember the day my life changed. Charles, you called me 3 times. You didn't answer. I was out of the country, business emergency in Singapore. I just got back this morning. He pulled out his phone, showing her the missed calls. I was going to call you back. I just didn't know what to say. Didn't know if you wanted to hear from me or if you were calling to make sure I had stopped bothering you. I don't want you to stop bothering me. The words came out choked. I want you to come back. I want to take back everything I said at the gala. I want another chance. Charles studied her face for a long moment. Why? Because I love you. Because I've been miserable without you. Because Eli cries for you and I dream about you and everything feels wrong when you're not there. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Because I was an idiot who let fear control me instead of trusting what we had. What about all those people, the ones who whispered and judged? They're still going to be there, Molly. They're still going to say terrible things. Let them. I don't care anymore. I only care about you, about us, about building something real together even if the whole world thinks it's crazy. She stepped closer. You were right. About everything. About me being stubborn and scared and too proud to accept help. About us being right together even when it doesn't make sense on paper. About choosing each other every single day. Charles reached out, brushing tears from her cheeks. You hurt me. When you said we weren't a family when you walked away, you destroyed me. I know. I'm so sorry. I spent 6 weeks trying to convince myself to move on. To accept that you didn't want this, didn't want me. I tried to forget you. Molly's heart sank. Did it work? Not even a little bit. He pulled her closer, and she went willingly. I'm completely in love with you, Molly Hayes. Every stubborn self, sacrificing beautiful part of you. And I don't want anyone else. I've never wanted anyone else. Not since that morning you saved my life. I'm in love with you too, she whispered against his chest. So completely in love that it terrifies me. Good. Be terrified. I'm terrified too. But let's be terrified together. He kissed her then, and Molly felt everything click into place. This was home. Not an apartment, or a city, or a place. This person, this man who had seen her at her worst and loved her anyway. Eli started fussing between them, and they pulled apart laughing. I think someone wants attention, Charles said, adjusting the carrier so he could see the baby's face. Hey buddy, I missed you. Eli grabbed Charles's finger and held on tight, grinning his gummy grin. He missed you too. So much. He keeps looking at the door like he's waiting for you to walk through. I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. Charles looked at Molly. If you'll have me, really have me. No more running, no more pushing away. We do this together, or we don't do it at all. Together, Molly agreed. I want you in our life. Not as someone who saves us, or fixes things, or makes everything easier. As someone who stays. Through the hard stuff, through the doubts, through the people who don't understand. As someone who's ours. I am yours. I've been yours since you put your hands on my chest and refused to let me die. He smiled that soft smile she loved so much. You gave me my life back that day. Let me spend the rest of it loving you and Eli. Let me be part of your family. Please. Yes, Molly said simply. Yes to all of it. They stood there on the sidewalk where everything had started, holding each other. Holding Eli between them, and Molly felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real, deep, absolute peace. Charles kissed her forehead. "Come home with me. To your place. Our place. If you want. Or we can find somewhere new. Somewhere that feels like us. I don't care where we are as long as we're together." Molly thought about her tiny studio, about the fourth-floor walk-up, and the broken heater, and the walls so thin she could hear her neighbors' conversations. She thought about Charles's world of penthouses, and private cars, and spaces bigger than her entire building. "Can we take it slow? Maybe spend time at both places, figure out what works. We can take it however you want, fast, slow, somewhere in between. As long as you're with me, I'll be happy." They walked back to her scooter, Charles's arm around her waist, and Molly felt lighter than she had in months. The weight she had been carrying, the constant fear and doubt and exhaustion, finally lifted. "I need to tell you something," Charles said as she unlocked her scooter. "About the gala, about everything that happened that night. I spent weeks replaying it, trying to figure out what I should have done differently. And I realized I failed you." "Charles, no. I was the one who—" "Let me finish, please." He turned her to face him. "I brought you into that world without preparing you. I knew those people knew how they'd react, and I didn't protect you. I didn't shut down the whispers, didn't make it clear that you were important to me, didn't stand up for you the way I should have. I was so busy playing CEO, being the person they expected me to be, that I forgot the only person who mattered was you. You can't control what people say." "No, but I can control how I respond. And I should have responded by taking your hand and making it clear to everyone in that room that you are the most important thing in my life. That anyone who disrespects you is disrespecting me. That I would rather burn every bridge and lose every connection than lose you." His voice was fierce, certain. "I won't make that mistake again. Next time someone says something cruel, next time someone looks at you like you don't belong, they'll deal with me, I promise you that." Molly felt fresh tears threatening. "I don't need you to fight my battles." "I know you don't. You're strong enough to fight your own battles. But you shouldn't have to fight them alone. That's what partners do. They have each other's backs. They face the world together." "Partners?" Molly repeated, tasting the word. "I like that." "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere, Molly Hayes. You're stuck with me now." "I think I can live with that." They loaded Eli into the scooter, and Charles insisted on following her home in his car. When they got to her building, he carried Eli up the 4 flights of stairs while Molly unlocked the door. The apartment looked smaller somehow with Charles in it. More cramped, more shabby. Molly felt a flash of embarrassment seeing it through his eyes. "It's not much, I know, but it's home." Charles set Eli gently in his crib, then turned to survey the space. "It's perfect. This is where you built a life for yourself and Eli. This is where you studied and worked and survived. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. You live in a penthouse. I live in an empty box with expensive furniture. This place has heart. It has love. It has everything that matters." He meant it. Molly could see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice. He really didn't care about the peeling paint, or the ancient appliances, or the futon that barely qualified as furniture. "Stay for dinner?" she asked. "I can't promise anything fancy. Probably just pasta and whatever vegetables I have left." "I'd love to." They cooked together in her tiny kitchen, bumping elbows and laughing when the water boiled over. Charles set the table while Molly fed Eli his bottle, and they ate simple spaghetti with marinara sauce, like it was the finest meal either of them had ever had. "I could get used to this," Charles said, twirling pasta on his fork. "Cheap pasta and paper napkins. Spending evenings with you, coming home to you, building a life that's about more than board meetings and profit margins." Molly reached across the table, taking his hand. "You really want this? This simple, ordinary life? Nothing about you is ordinary, and yes, I want this. I want every breakfast and dinner, every late-night studying session every morning where Eli wakes us up at 5 a.m. I want the good days and the hard days and the boring days. I want all of it. Even when I'm difficult and stubborn and push you away, especially then, because that's when you need me most, even if you don't realize it." After dinner, they gave Eli a bath together, laughing as he splashed water everywhere. Charles read him a bedtime story, while Molly cleaned up the kitchen, and when she came back, both of them were asleep. Charles slumped in the chair with Eli on his chest. She stood in the doorway watching them, these two people who had somehow become her entire world, and felt her heart expand with so much love she thought it might burst. This was what she wanted. This was what she had been too scared to admit she deserved. A family, a partner, a future that looked nothing like the one she had planned, but somehow felt exactly right. Charles stirred, opening his eyes. "Did I fall asleep?" "You did. Both of you." He carefully transferred Eli to his crib, then straightened. "I should probably go. Let you get some rest. Or you could stay." The words came out before Molly could stop them. "Just to sleep. Nothing else. I don't want you to leave yet." Charles's smile was soft. "I'll stay as long as you want me to." They settled onto the futon together, cramped and awkward, but somehow perfect. Charles pulled her against his chest, and Molly listened to his heartbeat steady and strong. The same heartbeat she had fought to save all those months ago. The same heartbeat that now beat for her. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For waiting. For loving me even when I didn't make it easy. You're worth waiting for, Molly. You're worth everything." She fell asleep in his arms, truly peaceful for the first time in months, and dreamed of a future where this feeling lasted forever. The weeks that followed felt like learning to breathe again. Charles came over most evenings after work, loosening his tie the moment he walked through the door, transforming from CEO to just Charles, the man who made Eli giggle and helped Molly study for exams and did dishes without being asked. "You don't have to do that," Molly said one night, watching him scrub her one good pot. "I want to. Besides, you cooked. This is the least I can do." "You bought the groceries." "Because I wanted to contribute. Stop trying to keep score, Molly. We're a team now." A team. The word still felt foreign sometimes after so long doing everything alone. But Charles made it easy. He showed up consistently, predictably, without fanfare or expectation. He was just there. 2 months after their reconciliation, Molly graduated from nursing school. She walked across the stage in her cap and gown, and when they called her name, Charles stood up in the audience and cheered so loudly that people turned to stare. Molly felt her cheeks flush, but she was grinning so hard her face hurt. Margaret was there too, and some of her classmates. But Charles was the one who met her after the ceremony with Eli in his arms and tears in his eyes. "I'm so proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did it. Against every odd, you did it." "We did it," she corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. You're the strongest person I know, but I'm glad I got to be part of it." He handed Eli to her, and the baby immediately grabbed at her tassel, making them both laugh. "Now what?" Charles asked. "Now I take my boards. Then I find a job. Then I start paying you back." "Molly." "I'm serious, Charles. We had a deal. This was a loan, not a gift." He sighed, but he was smiling. "You're impossible. You love it. I really do." She passed her boards on the first try and got hired at Boston General, the same hospital where she had done her clinical rotation. The cardiac floor, working with heart patients, teaching them how to live after coming so close to death. It felt right. Full circle. Her first day was terrifying and exhilarating and exhausting. She came home 12 hours later, feet aching, emotionally drained, and found Charles waiting in her apartment with Eli. "How did you get in?" He held up a key. You gave me one last month, remember? Right. Sorry, my brain is mush. Come here. He pulled her onto the futon, and she collapsed against him gratefully. Tell me about your day. So she did. About the patients she helped, the medications she administered, the doctor who snapped at her for asking too many questions, the elderly woman who cried and thanked her for taking time to explain what was happening. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, Charles said when she finished. It was hard, really hard. Good things usually are. Eli crawled over and pulled himself up, using Molly's leg, teetering unsteadily. At 11 months, he was almost walking, getting braver every day. Look at you, big guy, Molly said, scooping him up. Getting so strong. He'll be running before you know it, Charles said. Then we'll really be in trouble. He said it so naturally now, including himself in their future without hesitation. And Molly had stopped correcting him, stopped pushing back against the idea that they were a unit. Because they were. Somewhere along the way, they had become a family. Summer arrived hot and humid. They spent weekends at the park. Charles pushing Eli on the baby swings, while Molly studied for her certification exams. They had picnics on Blanket's ice cream that melted faster than they could eat it, long walks along the harbor while Eli babbled from his stroller. I want to introduce you to some people, Charles said one Sunday afternoon. Real friends. Not business associates or board members. Just people I actually like. Okay, Molly said, only slightly nervous. The dinner was at a small Italian restaurant, casual and warm. Charles's friends, a couple named David and Lisa, were in their 40s, down to earth, and instantly welcoming. Charles hasn't shut up about you for months, Lisa said, smiling at Molly. It's nice to finally meet the woman who brought him back to life. That's dramatic, Charles protested. It's accurate, David countered. Before you, he was a workaholic robot. Now he actually leaves the office at reasonable hours and talks about things other than quarterly earnings. I wasn't that bad. You were worse, Lisa said. But you're better now. Happier. It's good to see. Molly felt herself relax. These were good people. Real people. Not the shallow socialites from the gala, but humans with mortgages and regular jobs and lives that didn't revolve around status. So what's the secret? Lisa asked later when the men were arguing about baseball. How did you break through his walls? Molly thought about it. I didn't try to break through anything. I just saw him as a person, not as a CEO or a billionaire. Just Charles. And I think he needed that. We all need that. Someone who sees us for who we really are, not what we represent. Lisa squeezed her hand. He's lucky to have found you. I think I'm the lucky one. Then you're both lucky. That's how the best relationships work. Driving home that night, Eli asleep in his car seat, Charles reached over and took Molly's hand. Thank you for coming tonight, for giving my friends a chance. They're wonderful. Why didn't you introduce me sooner? I was scared. After the gala, after everything, I didn't want to push too hard too fast. But you're part of my life now. I want you to know the people who matter to me. I'd like that. I'd like to know all of you, not just the parts you show me. He brought her hand to his lips. You already know me better than anyone ever has. But I'll keep showing you more, for as long as you'll let me. August brought change. Molly's lease was up, and the landlord raised the rent by $200, money she didn't have, even with her nursing salary. Move in with me, Charles said when she told him. Officially. Not just staying over sometimes, but really move in. Molly's stomach flipped. That's a big step. We've been together for almost a year. We spend every night together anyway. Why keep paying rent on a place you barely use? Because it's mine, because it's my independence. I'm not asking you to give up your independence. I'm asking you to build a life with me. There's a difference. He sat down next to her on the futon they had practically worn out. I know you're scared. I know you need to feel like you're not dependent on me. So keep your own bank account. Pay your share of utilities, contribute however makes you comfortable. But stop sleeping on this terrible futon when I have a king-size bed and space for Eli to have his own room. Stop pretending we're not already doing this." He was right. She knew he was right. They were already functioning as a family, already spending every night together. The only difference would be an address. But it still felt huge, final. Like once she moved in, there would be no going back. "What if it doesn't work out?" she asked quietly. "Then we figure it out. But Molly, I'm not going anywhere. How many times do I have to prove that before you believe me?" "I believe you. What if I'm the one who leaves? What if I wake up one day and realize I can't do this?" Charles took her face in his hands. "Then you leave, and I'll let you go. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're looking for reasons to be scared because being happy terrifies you more than being alone." The truth of it hit hard. He was right. She had become so comfortable with struggle, with barely surviving, that the idea of actual happiness felt dangerous, like a trap waiting to spring. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay. Okay, I'll move in. But I'm paying for groceries, and I'm doing my own laundry, and if you try to buy me expensive furniture, I'm going to lose my mind." Charles laughed, pulling her into his arms. "Deal. Anything you want, as long as you're there." Moving in was easier than Molly expected. She didn't have much, just clothes and Eli's things and a few boxes of books. Charles's penthouse had 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen bigger than her entire old apartment. It should have felt wrong, like playing dress-up in someone else's life. But Charles made it feel like home. He cleared space in his closet for her scrubs, set up Eli's crib in the 2nd bedroom with a rocking chair, and soft lighting put her nursing textbooks on his bookshelf next to his business books. "See?" he said, gesturing around. "It's not my place anymore. It's ours." Eli took his first steps a week later, right there in the living room. He stood up, wobbled, and toddled 3 steps toward Charles before falling on his diaper-padded bottom. "Did you see that?" Molly shrieked. "He walked, Charles, he walked. Come here, buddy, do it again." Charles held out his hands, and Eli stood up. Determination on his little face, and took 4 steps this time before Charles caught him. "That's my boy. You did it." Molly watched them. Charles lifting Eli high in the air while the baby squealed with delight and felt something shift in her chest. This was real. This was her life now. And it was better than anything she could have imagined. Fall arrived with crisp air and leaves turning gold. Eli turned 1 year old, and they had a small party with Margaret, David, and Lisa, and a few of Molly's co-workers. Charles made a ridiculous cake that collapsed in the middle, and Eli smashed his piece all over his face, and everyone laughed until they cried. "This is what I always wanted," Molly told Charles that night after everyone had gone home and Eli was asleep. "Not the penthouse or the money. This. People who love us, moments that matter, a real family." "We are a real family," Charles said, "in every way that counts. Except legally." The words hung between them. Charles went very still. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Molly's heart raced. "I don't know. Maybe We're already living together, raising Eli together, building a life together. And I know I was the one who said we weren't a family, but I was wrong. We are a family, and maybe it's time to make it official." Charles stood up slowly. "Molly Hayes, did you just propose to me?" "No, I mean, not really. I was just thinking out loud and—" He was grinning. "Wait here." He disappeared into the bedroom and came back holding a small box. Molly's breath caught. "I've been carrying this around for 3 months, he said, opening it to reveal a simple gold band. "Waiting for the right moment, trying to plan something perfect. But I think this moment is pretty perfect." The ring was engraved on the inside. Molly took it, tilting it to read the inscription, "One breath changed us." Tears filled her eyes. Charles knelt down right there in their living room and took her hand. "Molly, I love you. I love your stubbornness and your strength, and the way you see the world. I love how you saved my life and then changed it completely. I love watching you with Eli, love coming home to you, love every single ordinary moment we share. I can't promise perfection, but I can promise I'll show up. Every single day for the rest of our lives, I'll show up for you and Eli. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Then he stood and kissed her, and Molly felt like her heart might explode from sheer happiness. "I was so nervous," Charles admitted when they finally pulled apart. "I kept rehearsing this speech, trying to make it sound romantic and meaningful. It was perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect. When do you want to do it? Big wedding, small wedding, courthouse?" "Small," Molly said immediately. "Just us and the people who matter. Nothing fancy. Just real." "I love you so much." "I love you too, even though you completely stole my almost proposal." He laughed. "You can propose to me on our 50th anniversary. I'll act surprised." They decided on October, 2 months away. Just enough time to plan something simple and meaningful. They would get married in the backyard of Charles's friend's house, under the autumn leaves, with maybe 20 people watching. "No press," Molly insisted. "No photographers except one person to take some pictures for us. No turning this into some society event." "Whatever you want. This is about us, not anyone else." The wedding planning was surprisingly easy because neither of them cared about the details that usually consumed engaged couples. They ordered a cake from a local bakery, hired a friend of Lisa's who played guitar, and asked Margaret to officiate after she got ordained online. "I can't believe I'm marrying you two," Margaret said, dabbing at her eyes. "I watched you fall in love in my cafe. This is like watching my kids get married." Molly bought a simple white dress from a boutique, nothing fancy, just elegant and comfortable. Charles wore a dark suit, no tuxedo. Eli got a tiny outfit with a bow tie that he immediately tried to eat. The morning of the wedding, Molly woke up early, nerves and excitement making sleep impossible. Charles was already awake watching her. "Second thoughts?" he asked. "Not even a little." "Wait. You? Never." He pulled her closer. "This is the easiest decision I've ever made." The ceremony was at 4 in the afternoon. The weather was perfect, cool, but sunny leaves drifting down around them. Their small group of friends and family gathered on folding chairs, and Molly walked toward Charles carrying Eli, who giggled and waved at everyone. "We're gathered here today," Margaret began, her voice warm and full of love, "to celebrate something pretty amazing. The joining of two people who found each other in the most unexpected way. Charles, Molly, your story isn't a fairy tale. It's better than that. It's real. It's messy and complicated and absolutely beautiful. And that's what makes it matter." Molly looked at Charles and he looked back at her, and the rest of the world faded away. They had written their own vows. Charles went first. "Molly, the day you saved my life, you didn't just restart my heart. You woke me up. You showed me what it means to be truly alive, not just existing, but living. You're the bravest person I know, and I'm honored that you're choosing me. I promise to love you through everything. The good days, the hard days, the ordinary days that make up a life. I promise to be your partner, Eli's father, and the man you can always count on. I promise to show up every single day, for as long as I live." Molly's turn. She had practiced this 100 times, but standing here looking at Charles, the practiced words disappeared. "Charles, I spent 2 years just surviving, just getting through each day. And then you came into my life and reminded me that I could do more than survive, that I deserved to live, to dream, to love. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You loved me when I didn't make it easy. You showed me what partnership really means." She glanced down at Eli, then back at Charles. "I can't promise perfection. I can't promise I won't be stubborn or scared or difficult sometimes. But I promise to choose you. Every day, through everything I choose you. I choose us. I choose this family we're building together." Margaret wiped her eyes. "By the power vested in me by the state of Massachusetts and the internet, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Charles, kiss your bride before I start ugly crying." Everyone laughed. Charles kissed her softly, sweetly, and Eli squealed between them, and Molly thought this might be the happiest moment of her entire life. The reception was simple. Burgers from a local food truck, beer, and wine cake that actually tasted good this time. They danced on the grass, Eli taking wobbly steps between them, their friends cheering them on. "Worth the wait?" Charles asked, holding her close. "Worth everything," Molly answered. That night back at home, they put Eli to bed together. The baby had worn himself out celebrating and fell asleep immediately, his little hand curled around Charles's finger. "He called you Dada today," Molly whispered. "Did you hear him?" "I heard." Charles's voice was thick. "Is that okay? I don't want to replace his father. I would never." "You're not replacing anyone. You're being exactly who Eli needs you to be. Who we both need you to be." She kissed him softly. "You're his dad, Charles, in every way that matters." They stood there watching Eli sleep, and Molly thought about how far they had come. From that freezing sidewalk to this moment. From strangers to friends to something so much deeper. 6 months later, on a warm spring evening, the three of them sat outside on their small balcony. Charles was making pancakes on a portable griddle, flipping them dramatically while Eli giggled. Molly sat curled in a chair, hands wrapped around coffee, watching her family with a full heart. "Dada more," Eli demanded, syrup all over his face. "Coming right up, buddy." Charles flipped another pancake, catching it perfectly. "What about you, Mrs. Whitman? Want another one?" Mrs. Whitman. The name still gave her butterflies. "I'm good, just happy watching you two." Charles looked at her, and the love in his eyes took her breath away. "Best life I could have imagined. Even better than being a billionaire CEO. Especially better than that." He abandoned the pancakes to kiss her. "This is what matters, right here." Eli threw a piece of pancake at them, laughing hysterically. "We're raising a troublemaker," Molly said. "Good. The best people are a little bit of trouble." They finished breakfast as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Eli started to doze against Charles's chest, full of pancakes and love. Charles carried him inside and settled him on the couch, covering him with a soft blanket. Molly joined them, curling against Charles's other side, and they sat there in the quiet, the three of them together. "Thank you," Charles said softly. "For what?" "For not giving up. For calling me back. For letting me in." He kissed her forehead. "For saving my life in more ways than one." Molly lifted her head to look at him. "You saved mine too. You know that, right? I was drowning before you came along. Lost. And you reminded me that I could be more. We saved each other." "We did." Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere people were having their own stories, their own struggles, their own moments of connection and hope. But here in this small space, they had made their own. Molly had everything she needed. A man who showed up every day without fail. A child who filled her world with joy. A life that was messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. She thought about that freezing morning, about kneeling on wet pavement, about counting compressions, and begging a stranger not to die. She thought about how one moment, one choice, one breath had changed everything. Sometimes the life you save becomes the one that saves you back. Sometimes love doesn't look like fairy tales or romance novels. Sometimes it looks like showing up, trying again, choosing courage over fear. Sometimes it looks like 30 compressions and 2 breaths and refusing to give up. Sometimes it starts with 1 breath and becomes everything. Molly closed her eyes, listening to Charles's heartbeat, feeling Eli's small body warm against them, and smiled. They were exactly where they were supposed to be, together, home.